so much. With that amendment, I think we can do this by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes and the agenda is approved as amended. We will now move on to item number 4, which is the issuance of voter outreach contract for, item number 3, very important, general public comment. So at this time, for public comment, I will pass this on to our Executive Director, Moises Garcia, to explain the rules.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to speak. If you are a club president, you have the floor privileges, so you have unlimited time. I'll provide a 60-second and a 30-second and time notice for you. And I have folks who are already in the queue. If you could please line up and I'll call folks up. So first we have Anthony Klein, followed by Harold Kahn, Jeff Ross, Liz Hayart, apologies, Susan Pfeiffer, Judith Garvey, Ryan Josty, Brandy Markman, Carolyn Gold, and then Ryan. If you're not on the queue, please just line up and we'll take you.
And we have a timekeeper. Member Strauss is going to be our timekeeper. So she will announce when you have 30 seconds left and then when your time is up.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Anthony Klein. I am a retired presiding justice of the Court of Appeal, on which I served for 42 years. Before that, I was the Legal Affairs Secretary to Governor Brown. I have nothing to say about the 2 challenges to Judges Thompson and Beggett. I know nothing about them. I don't have a lot to say about Judges Beggett and Thompson. What I want to talk about is what makes a judicial election completely different from all others. This is a political body that I'm addressing. And I think it's important to know what's happening in the rest of this country with respect to state elections. 36 states elect judges, trial judges. And this is believed by many, and I believe it myself, a challenge to democracy. The proponents of the recall of Judges Beggett and Thompson are arguing, and I'm talking about an organization called Stop Crime Action. This is a 501c4 nonprofit that does not have to, that may engage in political activities and is, and need not disclose its contributors. So dark money is at work here, and I'm told by people who seem to know more about these elections than I do that money is going to be considerable. The whole idea of this Stop Crime Action is that judges are accountable. Now, judges are accountable. They're accountable to the Constitution. They're accountable to the canons of judicial conduct. They can be, their decisions are appealable. But judges, the head of this organization is challenging these 2 judges and is going to be financing it. The head of that organization is a man named Frank Noto. And he says on his website that we
Thank you for your comments. That was time.
Well, I guess I can't, I'm sorry, I have a bit more to say, but I guess I'm not going to be able to do that. Well, what he's saying is voters have a right to choose the judges who represent them. Judges do not represent the people.
Thank you so much for your comments.
The other 2 branches do, but judges do not. And
Thank
if
you.
they did represent
Thank you, sir.
the people.
We need to move on to the next comment.
All right, well,
Thank you.
sorry.
Good evening. My name is Harold Kahn, and I've been privileged to be a judge of the San Francisco Superior Court for 22 years. I'm now retired. I'm here to tell you that the essence of impartial adjudication is deciding cases based on the facts that are come out in court and the application of law to those facts. And what the opponents to my colleagues, Patrick Thompson and Michael Begert, wish to do is to upend that. They wish to have their own worldview brought into the courtroom, that it cannot be challenged by cross-examination or by alternate facts. And the problem here is, put yourself in the shoes of litigants who walk into that courtroom. They have one strike against them. They won't have trust and confidence in the decision making. They will believe that the cards are stacked against them. We must not allow that to happen. My entire career has been based on furthering public trust and confidence in the courts. While I know that Jean Rowland, one of the opponents, is a wonderful, nice, kind person, what she is doing is wrong here. To run on a platform of being tough on crime tells every litigant in San Francisco that they have prejudged the case, that they have come in with a predetermination. I beg all of you to reject that. It is so corrosive. It is antithetical to everything that a judge does. And if you
30
hear
seconds.
concern in my voice, it's because they're saying, we want to send a message, they being the Stop Crime people. We want to send a message to the judges of San Francisco. If you don't rule the way we want you to rule, we're going to run against all of you. And imagine yourself walking into a courtroom where a judge has already decided that some action has to take place before hearing the facts of the case and applying those facts to the law. Please preserve our justice system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Ross, and I know some of you. So I'm going to thank you for giving me the chance to speak, but I'm going to thank you even more for having endorsed me. Because 6 years ago, over on Golden Gate, I was in the same position as my 4 colleagues. So let me start off by saying something that you might find surprising coming from a judge. I believe that judges should stand for election. Absolutely. We're elected officials. We should stand for election. But we should be judged on our merits. We should be judged on our record. And if an opponent wants to run against us, she, he, or they should be judged on their record, not on a platform of stopping crime. I was going to say the same thing my former colleague said, which is Mr. Noto announced at the outset that we need judges who are hard on crime. If you want to get rid of soft judges, we're not hard and soft on crime. We're hard on justice. We believe in justice and we believe in public safety, and there is no conflict between believing in public safety and believing in justice. That's our oath that we take as judges. And I'm so glad that you endorsed us and understood that the last time and didn't allow politics to interfere. You are a political organization, which is right. This is an election, but the people will listen to your voice. As you know, the Democratic Central Committee endorsement is the most important endorsement. It was the one we worked so hard for. I met with every single one of you when I was up in the same situation. I hope you've had a chance to talk to my colleagues. I can speak for very quickly for 20 more seconds about Judge Begert, because I had the unique situation of being on the appellate division with him, which means I sat next to him day after day as we heard cases, criminal cases, civil cases. He is a fair judge. He respects people who appear before him, whether they're self-represented or lawyers. He listens to both sides and he writes excellent decisions. So thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what I'm confident you will do, which is to support both Judge Thompson and Judge Begert. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Judge Gold. I sat here 4 years ago asking for your endorsement. I was not running against a sitting judge, and I speak today in support of the current sitting judges who are up for election and are being challenged, Judge Thompson and Judge Begert. I just want to speak to the idea of being a new judge. Really, this goes to Judge Thompson, because I was similar to Judge Thompson, came from a civil background, and I spent 30 years in the civil courts and thought I knew everything. And then as a judge, I was placed in the criminal courts, where I will admit I knew nothing. and I had to learn. And that is the exact same position that Judge Thompson was in, because he spent over 30 years as a civil litigator before he came and was put in the criminal courts. And I do believe that as judges, we get incredibly good training from our state judicial council. And what we are taught is that we have to apply the law. So there is, and then we are taught the law. We cannot have people challenging judges simply because judges have to release people according to the law after consideration of all the facts. Also, we can't have judges having to sit on the bench and being concerned about, will I be still sitting on the bench if I rule a certain way? That should not be a part of a judge's decision, and it has not been a part of Judge Thompson or Judge Beggart's decision making in these last years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Liz Iriar, and I'm a retired person and a resident of San Francisco. I'm here to support Judge Michael Beggart's re-election to the San Francisco Superior Court. I came to know Judge Beggart when I worked at McCutcheon Doyle Brown and Emerson, later Bingham McCutcheon, as a legal recruiting coordinator from 1992 to 2009, and also where Judge Beggart worked as an associate and then partner. Judge Beggart was our hiring partner for a good portion of the time I worked there. I found him to be smart, forthright, honest, compassionate, fair, a good listener, and not afraid of making tough decisions. To me, these are qualities a good judge should possess. I rarely speak publicly, but I feel Judge Beggart's re-election is an important matter. The people of San Francisco are fortunate to have him on the bench, and I feel he should remain there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, most of you know me. I'm Susan Pfeiffer. I'm an ex officio member of the Central Committee, but I'm also a certified enrollment counselor for Covered California. And you've heard me give this speech many times, but we are currently right in the depths of open enrollment that goes through January 31st, but November and December are the key months for people wanting to get coverage starting January 1st. So you must be enrolled and your first premium paid by the end of December to get coverage starting January 1st. What's new? If your income is low and you're eligible for Medi-Cal, which is free, you might also be eligible for one of the Covered California enhanced silver plans with super low premiums. Many people went on those plans during COVID, but the silver plan did have a deductible, even though it was small. This coming year, if you're on one of the enhanced silver plans with low income, there is no deductible. So no need to go to a gold or platinum plan if you're afraid of a deductible. Those are really important. Now, if you're an elected official, and I know a few of you are, or you work for one, you're representing one tonight, or you're a proxy for one tonight, or you are a proxy for a supervisor, assembly person, or state senator, your office should be notifying your constituents, and I think 3 supervisors have done that.
30 seconds.
And I have called until I'm blue in the face, so please let them know. Remember to enroll before December 31st for coverage to begin January 1st. If your constituents have any questions or problems, they can also contact me. I'm a certified enrollment counselor. So, done with the lecture. And if you're going to continue doing meetings here, you're going to need to get a microphone. The acoustics suck in this building. And tell everyone to speak loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Pfeiffer.
Good evening and greetings to my former colleagues. It's nice to see you again. I'm requesting your endorsement of Judge Michael Begart and Patrick Thompson this evening. I'm a retired district attorney in San Francisco of 33 years, and retired chief counsel from the Assembly Committee on Public Safety. I worked in the legislature for 8 years, analyzing a lot of crime bills. I don't think anybody would have characterized me as soft on crimes if you realize the type of laws that I worked on. I've also been a victim of robbery at gunpoint and residential burglary. Vice President Kamala Harris assigned me to the Community Justice Court when it first opened, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much from 2009, you know, I was offered other positions and I didn't want to leave it. I could have even been chief of felony rebooking when Judge Beggert was there, and I chose not to leave. Judge Beggert was a phenomenal judge of CJC. We saved lives at CJC. There were reasons why CJC floundered during the pandemic. It just didn't have the resources it needed. And there were a lot of changes that we need with the Department of Public Health. But Judge Beggert is the perfect kind of judge. He has a lot of respect for victims of crime. He always issued the stayaways I needed and was very patient, methodically looking through evidence and pictures of evidence. He issued restitution to my victims in big amounts and had hearings, and they got thousands of dollars. And he allowed the victims to come to court whenever they wanted to testify about whatever they felt they needed to tell him. He has a real sense of fairness, and he's very even-handed. And he's just extremely pleasant to deal with. He's easy to work with. He doesn't get caught up in crazy rules and procedures. He doesn't have an ego about being a judge or an ego of self-importance.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, esteemed members of the DCCC. My name is Ryan Kojaste. I'm a prosecutor and a former San Francisco Assistant District Attorney. I'm here today to humbly ask you to support our incumbent judges. And I'd like to share with you specifically my personal experience with Judge Patrick Thompson. As it so happens, the very last case I prosecuted in this county was before Judge Thompson in Department 12 of the Hall of Justice on July 13, 2022. It was a violent felony case. Count 1, attempted robbery, felony. Count 2, assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury, felony. And I added an enhancement for great bodily injury since the victim had his nose broken during the commission of the crime. The defendant was in custody without bail. I presented testimony and evidence during the preliminary hearing. I asked Judge Thompson to find that sufficient evidence had been presented to substantiate the charges and the enhancement. Defense argued that there wasn't enough evidence for the enhancement or the attempted robbery, that the assault should be reduced to a misdemeanor and the defendant should be released. I argued against that and stated the defendant is a threat to the public who must remain in custody. Judge Thompson agreed with the prosecution because I did my job, diligently prepared, and persuaded the court. Judge Thompson thoughtfully and impartially applied the facts to the law and agreed that the defendant should remain in custody because this was a crime of violence. In other words, Judge Thompson did his job. This assault on the judiciary being promoted by Brooke Jenkins is unbecoming of the DA's office, it's embarrassing, and it's dangerous. Because it's an election year and the current DA's administration has no one else left to blame for the challenges San Francisco faces, they have resorted to attacking judges. Please don't be persuaded by this Trumpian rhetoric. As a prosecutor with no history of misconduct, I humbly ask you to endorse Judge Thompson and Judge Beggert. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to see you in person. My name is Brandy Markman. I'm a Richmond District public school parent and a member of the San Francisco Education Alliance and our Revolution affiliate. We oppose the 8th grade algebra measure, along with the Richmond District Dem Club and the Milk Club. San Francisco Education Alliance members who are part of SFUSD's Math Educator and Equity Caucus have asked me to read the following statement on their behalf, as many of them have STEAM night tonight in their schools, and also because this is crunch time for our teachers. I'd be happy to put you in touch with them after this meeting. We are urging the DCCC to oppose the 8th grade ballot measure. The authors of this ballot measure did not consult any SFUSD math educators when they wrote it. This is insulting and disrespectful to us as educators. This is not unlike the alarming national trend of telling teacher librarians they need to ban books that discuss LGBTQ rights or making laws that prohibit teachers from preaching critical race theory. Tonight, the San Francisco Democratic Party needs to send a clear message to the nation that our educators deserve to be respected. SFUSD's math curriculum was developed by Stanford mathematicians. It is a highly and nationally respected curriculum because it detracts or desegregates our math classes. So more students, our English language learners, disabled students, Black and brown students, have access to advanced math classes. In a statement, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics calls for eliminating tracking in math in public schools, saying, tracking harms the most marginalized students by limiting opportunities to see themselves as powerful thinkers and learners of mathematics. This reckless ballot measure would direct us to resegregate our math classes. Tracking in our district's math sequence would deny many of our most marginalized students the opportunity to take advanced math classes. Please oppose this ballot measure. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Ryan Harlow and I work for a peer support program in San Francisco County Jail. As a citizen of the city who lives and works in the city and loves the city very much, we deserve a judge with experience, all of us. We don't want a judge to come catch his licks for the first time here in San Francisco and learn how to do his thing. I work with people individually who have been in custody, out of custody, in Judge Beggart's court, out of Judge Beggart's court, in criminal court, and as somebody who's been to prison himself many years ago. Doing time is easy. You sit on your rack, you get free food, you get people coming to you, if you're lucky enough, they love you. Changing your life is hard. When people go through drug court or any collaborative court, it's difficult. We're not talking about something like quitting coffee. This is the most addictive substances in the world that we've ever experienced. People die, and it's sad. And we deserve to have a judge that knows what he's doing, who cares about people, who holds people accountable 100%. I've worked with people who, in drug court, who have come back to jail who've broken the law, to be held accountable. And that's the right thing to do. They've also been released, gotten better over time, and made a productive member of themselves. Some have started working for the city, and I'm blessed to be a part of that. I would hate to see what happens when we have a judge without experience try to talk and deal with these problems people are going through problems that even I can't fathom. It's a very difficult time, and we need a compassionate judge who definitely holds people accountable, for people that people that are just trying to victimize us as citizens need to be held accountable. I've seen many people graduate from Judge Beggart's court, become productive members of society, and will lead wonderful lives. I endorse Judge Beggart. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I don't have any titles or anything. My name is Joseph Francis. I'm a veteran from Veterans Justice Court, and I've been clean like 3 years now. I came through the courts. I've done numerous violations in prison. Never did anything but a Band-Aid. I've done a lot of programs, and once I let my ego go and started to apply the things they were teaching me in Veterans Justice Court through the therapy and stuff, I got a lot better. And the judge told me that it would be, it's where the work begins. And I've been working every day since. So I've been able to go back to my employment. And everyone that was in the court helped me in some kind of way through support, whether it was an email or attachment to an email, things I didn't know. And they taught me a lot of things. It was the simple things that still keeps me going today. And when I find myself getting back in those same behaviors, I can always rely on some things that they taught me in the court, from DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, to cognitive therapy, which I now teach MRT groups to other people that have substance abuse. And so it wasn't easy. I still work every day. I work volunteer at Salvation Army, doing groups and stuff, just to keep myself going. I'm back at work now. My life is getting a lot easier, and thanks to the judge and his team, put me on the right track. Just want to thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Well, honor to each is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Rusnov. In 2001, I enlisted in the U.S. Army. Went to Iraq, came home, was injured, and around 2018, a Vietnam vet just said, "You've got too much damn time on your hands. Go do something." So I've been taking my time in San Francisco and investing in the San Francisco Veterans Justice Court. I've never seen a judge build a team within the staff. I've never seen a man care so much about the people who are going through the court. I've never seen a man dedicate his time and the efforts of those around him to help people get out of the most dangerous and deadly affliction of our age to a better place. And a lot of people don't succeed. I know a few friends of mine have gone through this court and have passed away. People who've graduated and still succumbed to the illness. But I'm here to present somebody who's been in the courtroom every fucking Wednesday for 4 fucking years through COVID, watching this judge make sure that everyone goes through the process while everyone else was scared, kept everyone's hopes going and the courtroom running. And then when everything opened up, the business proceeded as it was supposed to. I'm telling you to endorse Judge Beggert because he helps the people who get into his courtroom get to a better place.
30 seconds.
As a Veterans Affairs Commissioner Vice President, I've just been elected and just found San Francisco to be the best city I've ever been in. And I really thank you for your time.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Linda Colfax. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a San Francisco Superior Court judge. And today, just as in 2018, my judicial colleagues are being challenged for their jobs, not because of a failure to follow the law, not because of any temperament issues, not because of lack of collegiality, or any demonstrated bias or prejudice. Instead, they are being challenged by a populist message that judges should follow some public opinion or political rancor and decline to follow the law clearly established by our legislature and the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of California. In other words, once again, what is supposed to be an independent third branch of government is under attack for political reasons. I attended a debate last week among all of the candidates in which one of the challengers, I can't remember which one because their messages are basically intertwined, said something like they were running because they heard someone from our executive branch state that judges need to be tougher on criminal defendants, and it made them want to step up and volunteer. They went on to describe how they would approach cases that involve narcotics allegations. We judges are not permitted to prejudge any case, be it civil, family, probate, or even the most serious criminal cases.
30 seconds.
Likewise, we're not permitted to weigh on specific types of cases that may come before us, because it gives a perception or reality that we have prejudged the issue, and of course, that would be unfair, a denial of due process of law, and a violation of our canons of judicial ethics. Judges Patrick Thompson and Michael Beggert do the hard work every day that is required of judges. They are independent, they are wise, and they follow the law. They treat everyone in their court with dignity and respect. Please support them.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the DCCC and all the members for allowing me to come before you. You guys endorsed me in 2020, and I'm thankful for that. And some of you are still here, and I just am honored with the opportunity to come here and now speak as a sitting judge in the San Francisco Superior Court I just finished ending my 3rd year. I'll be starting my 4th year. And I'm here to support Judge Michael Beggart as well as Judge Patrick Thompson. I've known Michael Beggart for over 25 years. He is a personal friend of mine and he is now a colleague. We knew each other when I was a young, fresh-eyed, out of undergrad paralegal at the Asian Law Caucus, and he was a board member at a fancy downtown law firm. And as a fancy downtown corporate law firm attorney, he has always committed and made time to be on boards such as the ACLU, not the ACLU, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and the Asian Law Caucus. And then he became a judge it'll be 13 years in January, and I always knew that he had this compassion. He has served and been assigned to almost every assignment in the San Francisco Superior Court. He is not test running the job, he's been doing the job. And what is important is that the propaganda that you're reading in the newspapers is incorrect. These 2 men have judicial temperament, they make hard decisions, and Patrick Thompson, I just want to add, that he is 6 out of 49 sitting judges of African American judges. I don't want to make it counting on one hand. He has been vetted by the governor and he was chosen and appointed, and he is fair. And that's what people may not want. They're not used to having fair judges. And I also tried 3 trials in front of Michael Beggart. He did not always rule my way, okay? So anyway, please. I endorse Michael Beggart and Patrick Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
Hi, my name is Melanie Kushner, and I'm the Director of Collaborative Justice Programs for the Superior Court in San Francisco. Well, I've only been in my current role for about 1.5 years. I've spent 14 years as a licensed clinical social worker in the San Francisco jails for the Department of Public Health. The last 7 as Deputy Director of Reentry Services. I left that position to work at the District Attorney's Office to run day-to-day operations and victim services. I'm so proud of what San Francisco has created to support justice-involved people. And I went to work with victims because I feel like that's been lacking, not in San Francisco, everywhere. Victims do not get their time, and so I was excited to take that on. Everybody appearing in a court, whether it is a defense attorney, a defendant, a prosecutor, a litigant, it doesn't matter. When I see them in Judge Beggart's courtroom, they're treated fairly and with respect. And everyone who walks in that door is there for a reason, and that reason is valued. And they're talked to like adults, like humans, they have values, and so does the judge. I took my current role running the collaborative courts because I believe in them profoundly. I met
30 seconds.
Okay, I met with Stock Crime SF, and they unfortunately didn't understand basic concepts like in the interest of justice. Why would you let him out how's that the interest of justice? There are sentencing laws, there are sentencing mandates. You can't hold somebody for jaywalking for a 25-year sentence. That's problematic. So there's not a whole lot of understanding about the collaborative courts, about the treatment we do, about seeing the gentleman who lives under the highway overpass covered in lice get well and get his life together, and Judge Beggart makes that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
General public comment, or do we wait for our issues?
General public comment.
General, will there be public comment taken on each item? No. Awesome, I'm Rudy Gonzalez. I'm not here to weigh in on the judicial races. I'm here to weigh in on item number 2 on your agenda as it relates to the committee of which I'm the principal officer. Of the Committee to Restore Police Staffing and Public Safety. There has been, like a lot of issues in San Francisco, a lot of noise, and I would actually argue propaganda put out about what this measure is and what this measure is not. I don't think anyone would disagree that public safety is of importance to all of us. From a working class perspective, it's important to the hotel workers, it's important to the janitors who work the night shift, it's important to retail workers, it's important to public safety workers and essential workers in the public sector as well. It's important to all of us and our families and our children. We cannot allow the divisive nature of San Francisco politics to bleed into the essential staffing of public safety. And we can say yes to police public safety staffing. And that's not something that some labor leaders have even felt comfortable saying in public. But we can say yes to public safety as Democrats. We can win the day and win the argument, and also say and. We can say that and we will be fiscally responsible, and we will be transparent with San Francisco voters, and we will find a way to pay for it. Whether it's an unspent millions of dollars in housing money that the mayor's administration has not moved or let loose, that businesses have already paid their taxes for, whether or not it comes from the existing budget. One thing's clear, the budget for public safety recruitment and marketing has not been adjusted in the 6, 7, or however many years we've been living in this administration. It has not been moved. Chief Scott agrees with the position that we need to increase it, and I think the current rank and file do. And we also need to think about public safety as it relates to 911 dispatcher staffing, because we need people to answer the phone and actually dispatch the officers that we desperately need in our communities where we need them. So there's a lot of conversations around public safety, but this is a strategic and surgical move. We have a lot of things to talk about in the context of the budget, and we hope that we can earn your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Gerbel, and I'm the Executive Director of IFPTE Local 21, and I'm also one of the 3 co-chairs of the Public Employees Committee, and I'm here to speak to ask for your yes vote on Measure B. I'm going to be briefer than Rudy, shockingly. So, you know, from our perspective, this is about fiscal responsibility, right? We have a projected $700 million deficit in the city and county of San Francisco. I think we're seeing what's happening in other cities when you have projected deficits and you don't staff appropriately or plan for your future, and to look at it in any other way, I think would be an injustice to our communities and not planning for what we need in the future. And so we're asking you all to vote yes on this measure to be responsible in terms of our own city budget. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is David Cannon, I'm the Executive Director for SAI Local 10-1. I am also one of the co-chairs of the Public Employees Committee. I'm coming before you today to ask for your support for Measure B. Because we believe that yes, public safety matters, but we also want dispatchers hired, we want mental health workers hired, we want behavioral health workers hired, but we also want to be fiscally responsible. We do not, the general fund, we're already facing a $725 million deficit over the next 2 years. The initial measure would have taken $300 million out of the general fund. And we are saying, let's pay for it out of the existing tax or reform or create a new tax to pay. But we absolutely are asking for your support for Measure B in March, and in November we will amend an existing tax or create a new one to pay for those additional positions, the public safety positions, which will include dispatchers, mental health workers, and nurses, which we are desperately trying to hire. And we represent 18,000 city workers, by the way, in the city that provide very critical services, and they are super short-staffed. Our 911 dispatchers that we represent have a 40% vacancy rate. We want them hired too. So we're asking for your support for Measure B. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for public comment? Okay, seeing no hands and no movement, public comment is now closed. Thank you everyone for speaking in support of your chosen items or candidates. We'll now move on to item number 4 in the agenda, which is the issuance of voter outreach contract for the March 5th, 2024 election. This is very exciting. We're going to do our endorsements, and then we're going to put together a mailer to send out to Democrats so that they know who the Democratic Party has endorsed. We did do some outreach. Unfortunately, we only got one submission for taking this project on. So just to give you an overview of some of the outreach that we did, I'm going to pass it on to Executive Director Garcia.
Thank you, Chair Mahoney. I reached out to our list of consultants, in addition to reaching out to members of this committee and DCCC delegates, as well as political clubs, to share this, as well as reaching out to a few folks. So we had Member Loftus had expressed concern that we hadn't done enough outreach to people of color-owned businesses or women-led businesses. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any responses, despite making attempts to contact NPE, hoping they would respond to our RFP and a few other
have this one, submission from Stearns Consulting. Do we have a motion to?
Move.
Thank you very much, thank you very much. We can do this by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. We will be reaching out to Stearns Consulting to let them know that they have won the bid. We'll now move on to item number 5, which is the endorsement of candidates for local elected office for the March 5th, 2024 election. For this portion, I offer an introduction or a little bit of a briefing from members Ibanez and Berry who had the endorsement committee.
So this past Saturday, we made an endorsement. We conducted the interviews for seats 1 and 13, and there were 4 candidates for both seats, and we asked questions. We asked some hard questions, and there were some really good responses to some of those questions that we asked. It's always a privilege to be in this role, to be able to interview candidates who are interested in working and fighting for our democracy. And yeah, it was great doing that interview.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the members that did come Saturday to the endorsement process. And having all these judges in the room got me a little nervous right now. Other than that, I think the process went well, and thank you to the candidates for being on time and turning in your questionnaires on time. You made it very easy for us, so thank you.
Thank you so much for your work on putting that together, and thank you for everyone who was able to attend and who participated. Are there any other comments from the committee?
I wasn't at Saturday, but I just want to take a moment because retired Justice Klein, who came here, was clearly not used to the public comment limits, but I do want to say that Justice Klein is known as a legend in California. Most importantly to me, he was the judicial appointments person for Governor Jerry Brown, and in that role, he brought more women, more people of color. I believe Mary Morgan was one of the first lesbian judge that I know of in San Francisco, and so I just want to acknowledge Justice Klein's work as advancing civil rights, and just say I'm sorry you had 2 minutes, but they were well spent here. And I do want to just briefly say that I wholeheartedly support the endorsement of the incumbents. I think it is really troubling what we're seeing, and I think the judges that came before us articulated very much. I will say that as one of many LGBT elected officials in San Francisco, there were times that we did fight against candidates, but that was when Pete Wilson and George Deukmejian were governors in both of their administrations, and they refused to even consider LGBTQ candidates for the bench. And so things have changed somewhat, and I'm proud to see both judges that we supported in the most recent cycle, who I think bring a lot of diversity to the bench. But I think that hopefully our endorsement will really send a strong message that you can't buy a seat in a courtroom. It is not right.
Thank you, Member Duffy.
Yeah, I apologize as endorsement co-chair. We really want to give a special thanks to our executive director, Garcia, who made the process the smoothest it's been as of yet. So we thank you so much. And just a point of information, are we going to hold discussion for the individual seats, or are we going to speak in general?
This is the time to voice any opinions you want to before the endorsement for both.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to provide any comment? Member Thomas?
I echo some of the comments of my colleagues regarding there's a different standard that when we're looking at removing the judge from the bench and looking at how they've been performing the course of their duties, and everything that we've heard in the research. And thanks especially to the committee that's responsible for researching on candidates and ballot measures. That we've heard that they've performed admirably in their duties and they've respected the law. I think that this seems to be a pretty consensus item, and I have a point of information to wonder if Is this something we could do as one motion acclamation, or do we need to do a roll call vote for this?
I think for endorsements, it's best practice to do a roll call, just for transparency's sake. So that would be my recommendation.
I agree, we generally do roll call for elections. Appreciate the sentiment of trying to get this done expeditiously. Member Tom.
Thank you, Chair Mahogany. So I wanted to say that I appreciated Judge Ross's comments about that this is a part of our democratic institution, the way that we conduct select judges in our state, and that is not a rubber stamp. I understand that, and I practiced before many of these judges. In fact, out of the judges that gave public comment, I have practiced in front of all but two. And so I have a deep and abiding respect for our institutions, the independence of our judiciary, and also the role that everybody must play in the system. Notwithstanding that, it is an election, and I am in a position where it's not necessarily that I have a conflict because I practice in front of this court, but I do want to be thoughtful about the way that I state my positions for this endorsement. I'm choosing to abstain in Judge Beggart's race against Mr. Zecker in seat number 1. However, because in seat number 13, I have a long-standing history and friendship and collegial relationship with Jean Rowland, who has been an assistant district attorney and a managing attorney in the DA's office, serving the people of San Francisco for the last 23 years. She's devoted her career to justice, to fairness, and many of the duties that we exercise as prosecutors encompass not just advocacy, but balancing of fairness, the law, the rights of the defendant. And it's because of this and my personal relationship with her and the way that I've seen herself conduct herself, both as an attorney in the courtroom, as a manager, and that her overall persona is unimpeachable, that I will be supporting her for seat 13.
Thank you, Member Tung. Is there anyone else who'd like to provide comment at this time before voting? Member Berry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Seat 1, the challenger, Zecker, I really listened to what he had to say during the interview, and he gave us clear information that he had no experience whatsoever in criminal law. And me having been through the court system myself, appearing before a judge over 30 times, that scared me, frightened me, and I don't think right now is the time to have someone learn on a curve when a lot of people are going to jail right now. And I definitely would be supporting the incumbent Beggart. And then on seat 13, kind of the same thing. I respect what Member Tung said on Roland's experience in the district attorney's office. I don't know about it, but she's been there for years, so she knows how things goes. But I was waiting for her to express something on why she chose seat 13 against the governor appointed judge, the Honorable Thompson. And the only thing she could really respond was that she was a mother. And anybody who knows about the court system, I don't think that's a qualification or makes you any better than who's serving in that seat. And then it really is on my mind, like, to replace a judge, you should have some good dirt or a case that just stinks, that everybody would be pissed off at. And came to mind in not South San Francisco, but in the peninsula, a judge who sentenced the Stanford rapist to 6 months. 3 months, right? He ended up doing 3 months. And that hurt my heart as a person sentenced to possession of marijuana for 6 months. that a rapist only got 3 months. So when they wanted him out, I didn't have no bad feelings about that. I slept fine at night, but with Your Honorable Thompson, I mean, I called him today. I was like, maybe there's something out there, you know, I just don't know about. So I called him, and he said there was a case that people felt the sentencing was weak or not harsh enough, but the district attorney and the defender agreed on it. So it's like, that's all they got? Come on now. So I will be supporting the incumbent, Your Honorable Thompson, in seat 13 tonight.
Thank you, Member Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm also going to be supporting Honorable Judge Becker and Honorable Judge Thompson. When we conducted the interviews, just what was expressed this evening, it really sent a lot of red flags to me from the other candidates in terms of where they stand on issues of our democracy, on issues of crime, and it made me feel very uneasy that they were saying, we're gonna be so tough in crime, and it basically took me back to the 80s, where we're gonna be tough on crime, and yet those policies, in my opinion, is what we're in a mess. It's the reason why we're in such a mess in terms of why we have what we have today. And I from a very as a Latina woman, as an immigrant, I cannot support anyone who comes and says, I am going to be tough on crime, because I know what that means. I know what that means if you're a Black person. I know what that means if you're a brown person. I also know what that means if you're poor. It means that you're gonna serve a longer term in prison and you're not going to have justice. And because of those values that I have, I cannot support the other candidates. And I do believe that the two incumbent judges are fair. I know that their peers would have not joined us today and speak on their behalf if they didn't believe that the work that they're doing at the bench was the right work. And so for that reason, I am supporting the incumbents. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Banez. Is there anyone else who'd like to provide comment at this time?
Chair, I'm sorry, I left out a point.
I'm sorry?
I left out.
Okay, Member Berry, one last time.
I apologize, Chair. I left out a point, and my point is this. There's a movement in San Francisco that blames individuals for what this city has failed at through policy, through ordinance, through charter, through our education system, constant failures in this city. So the first route was to go after a DA. That was gonna solve crime. I don't think that happened. Now it's the judges. That's not gonna happen if you change judges. Next, they'll have to go after the law, because the judges that are in their seats at this time are going by the law. And if you want them to go against the law, you're gonna have to change that. So for all these people who wanna make all these changes and go after things, you might as well start your new route and go after the law and respect that penal code such as 1001.36 took effect January 1st, 23. And if you're expecting some new people to go against that penal code, they will be breaking the law. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Berry. At this time, I think we are ready to take our votes. Per my understanding, we have the following options, and we'll take each seat one at a time. For seat 1, we have, your options are to vote Beggart, Zecker, no endorsement, or abstain. Again, that's Beggart, Zecker, no endorsement, or abstain. Those are your 4 choices, and we will be doing a roll call vote. And for this portion, I will pass it on to Executive Director Russell.
Point of information, for my tallying purposes that we will be using for all our votes tonight, it's easier if you let me know how many members are not present.
Oh, I can do there's 29 members present.
There's 29 present, thank you.
We'll get started. Superior Court Judge, seat 1. As chair stated, options are Beggar, Zecker, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
Beggar.
Baraka.
Beggar.
Berry.
Beggar.
Campos.
Beggar.
Chen.
Pass.
Dufty.
Beggar.
Galata.
Beggar.
Ibanez.
Beggar.
Kim.
Beggar.
Lacroix.
Beggar.
Lee.
Beggar.
Loftus.
Beggar.
Lovett.
Beggar.
Mahogany.
Beggar.
Mandelman.
Abstain.
Marr.
Beggar.
Maliga.
Beggar.
Peraza.
Beggar.
Raju.
Beggar.
Ronan.
Beggar.
Thomas.
Beggar.
Tung.
Abstain.
Member Williams is excused. Zoe.
Beggar.
Pelosi.
Abstain.
Member Mullins absent. Deluxe is absent. Ma.
Beggar.
Cohen.
Pass.
Wiener.
Beggar.
Haney.
Beggar.
Ting.
Beggar.
Going back, member Chen.
Beggar.
And member Cohen.
We'll go with Beggar.
Thank you. Member Beggar has 26 votes, and there was 3 abstentions. Sorry, member Judge Beggar.
Congratulations, Judge Becker, for the endorsement. We now move on to seat number 13.
Superior Court Judge, seat 13. Your options are Thompson, Rowland, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
Thompson.
Baraka.
Thompson.
Berry.
Thompson.
Campos.
Thompson.
Chen.
Thompson.
Dufty.
Thompson.
Galata.
Thompson.
Ibanez.
Thompson.
Kim.
Thompson.
Lacroix.
Thompson.
Lee.
Thompson.
Loftus.
Thompson.
Lovett.
Thompson.
Mahogany.
Thompson.
Mandelman.
Roland.
Marr.
Thompson.
Maliga.
Thompson.
Peraza.
Thompson.
Raju.
Thompson.
Ronan.
Thompson.
Thomas.
Thompson.
Tung.
Roland.
Williams is excused. Zoe.
Thompson.
Pelosi.
Abstain.
Mullen and Lucas are absent. Ma.
Thompson.
Cohen.
Thompson.
Wiener.
Thompson.
Haney.
Thompson.
Ting.
Thompson.
There are 26 for Thompson, 2 Rowland, and 1 abstain.
Congratulations, Judge Thompson, for Okay, we will now move on to item number 6 in our agenda. This is the endorsement of qualified local measures for the March 5th, 2024 election. For an introduction, I'll pass this on to Chair of our Issues and Resolutions Committee, Vice Chair Lovett.
Thank you. I guess we'll be losing some of our justices here. But we have a process here today for 7 ballot measures that are going to the March 2024 ballot. This past Saturday, we had endorsement interviews with all the proponents and opponents who were able to come for 6 of those 7. And actually the Ethics Commission measure does not have an official campaign, and they're ethics. So once something becomes official, they cannot use government time or their role to speak on behalf. So we will conduct this process now where for each of the measures, we'll go through the letters A through G, and we'll kind of give
give the recommendation from the committee, so that's Vice Chair Peter Galata and myself. Then can we take a vote after each of the measures? And we didn't have 15 or 16 like we did back in November 2022, but it's a good number. So I think that'll help us to sort of digest, and if we can have discussion too. So in that order, recommendation, discussion, and vote for each of the measures. I will take 4, Vice Chair Galata will take 3. So let's start with Measure A. And so this is an affordable housing bond measure. This is like apple pie in terms of the whole pie for the production of affordable housing, also for preservation as well. There is broad support in the city of San Francisco for a $300 million affordable housing bond that will go before voters March 2024. It's for seniors, first responders, the workforce, low-income folks, survivors of domestic violence and trauma. So important to know that this does not raise property tax rates for property owners, and this has been a policy of San Francisco really since 2006 as they schedule out the bonds that are released. We do have a housing mandate to build 46,000 affordable units of the total that's required by the state in our housing element, which is our plan for San Francisco. And this is really contributing significantly because it also brings in dollars from the state and feds and other sources. So we can have some discussion. I invite that. And we want to do it by roll call, right? I imagine that there.
The vote will happen by roll call.
Okay, sounds good. Right, so does anybody want to speak on this particular measure?
Well, you said most of it, Member Lovett, but I have to speak on behalf of the Council Community Housing Organizations that we both work for. This has been a year in the making. First was the housing element, the work that was being done and making sure that San Francisco was actually having a conforming housing element and getting that passed. And the bar around building 46,598 housing units is very high because we've never actually even achieved our affordable housing goals while we've exceeded the market rate goals for that. And the state's not providing any resources for it. There's been a lot of pressure on City Hall to actually do streamlining legislation to actually jumpstart market rate development. And part of that was a group of planners coming together and looking at the economics of housing production and found that under different scenarios, housing wasn't being built in the market rate side. So one of the tools that this advisory committee had recommended was lowering the inclusionary housing fee, which actually limits what's available for affordable housing development in San Francisco. But we knew that with streamlining being a real important thing that City Hall was taking up, that it was important that we, as a city, actually put forward a superior amount of money to what was lost in the loss of inclusionary housing funds. And so that's where this bond came out of. This bond is also a drop in the bucket for what is really needed right now. In the pipeline, the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development has said there's $890 million of projects that are ready to go, but just need funding. So this is $300 billion to answer $890 million currently in the pipeline. So we know it's not enough. However, the more funds that we put in, the more flexible our resources that we currently have can be used for many of the different ways that we fulfill our housing production preservation efforts. And on the ballot in November is going to be another bond in the region across the 9 Bay Area counties of either $10 billion or $20 billion. San Francisco's vote in the region is going to be essential. So getting it right in March and having a really strong campaign that has a consensus approach, both the mayor and the board of supervisors are supporting this, and most organizations in the city are. It makes sense that we put the stamp of approval of the Democratic Party endorsement on it, and we do work like hell to make sure it passes, because what's at stake is really making our government work effectively and making sure that we can take this consensus into a consensus approach of implementation. So I don't think it's going to be controversial for this vote, but I think it's really important to know that there's just been a lot of work all around to get this moving forward, and it will be a little bit of manna from heaven for what's needed. That's a greater amount of need. So appreciate your support, colleagues.
Great, so we didn't say it, we recommend yes. But the committee, and
affordable housing bond. Your options are yes, no, and yes, no endorsement, and abstain. Member Avalos.
Yes.
Baraka.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Campos.
Yes.
Chen.
Yes.
Dufty.
Yes.
Galata.
Yes.
Ibanez.
C.
Kim.
Yes.
Lacroix.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Loftus.
Yes.
Beloved.
Yes.
Mahogany.
Yes.
Mandelman.
Yes.
Mar.
Oh, yes.
Mar.
Maliga.
Oh, Moliga, yes.
Raza.
Yes.
Raju.
Yes.
Ronan's gone. Thomas.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Rollins is excused. Zoe.
Yes.
Pelosi.
Yes.
Member Mullen, Marcus are absent. Ma.
Yes.
Poe.
Yes.
Wiener.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
28 yeses.
Thank you, and congratulations, Prop A, for the endorsement, for earning the endorsement.
Okay, next, all right. So next is Proposition B, which is a charter amendment regarding police officer staffing levels conditioned on future funding. I think our labor leaders who are here tonight really summarized this measure best in terms of acknowledging how it seeks to address public safety while also ensuring fiscal responsibility. There are staffing shortages in the police department. That is documented. There's 600 officers short. But there's also a shortage of 911 dispatchers, EMTs, firefighters, nurses, paramedics, and sheriff's deputies. And all of these roles are important to a comprehensive approach to addressing public safety in San Francisco. And this charter amendment takes one step forward to really address these shortages. The charter amendment will establish a minimum staffing requirement, but it does so in a fiscally responsible way, which I think is really important here. It will establish a fund that will be used to cover the costs associated with new staff, in addition to paying for the hiring and recruitment efforts for those positions. And it requires City Hall to establish a new fund, a new tax, or using an existing tax to fund this staffing. And voters will be approving that funding. So this, I think, is really important for making our city's budget process more transparent and also responsive to residents of our city to weigh in on this decision regarding our budget and how we're allocating funding for our city. So I think based on our discussion at committee, we believe in responsible management of our limited city resources. We heard tonight that we are facing a $700 million budget shortfall. This charter amendment will allow us to address public safety, but while ensuring funding remains available for all of the city services, programs, positions that contribute to the health and safety of our city. So our committee recommends a vote of yes on Prop B tonight. And we'll open it up now for member discussion, comments.
Member Berry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Galata. I would just like to let the record reflect that by me being the chair of the Black Lives Matter committee for this body, this ballot measure is very tricky for me. What does stand out is new taxes and also the budget deficit and specifically how reparations office of $2 million just got cut. So I just wanted to express my frustration and internal conflict with this ballot measure. And that's all I will say. That's my comment.
Thank you, Member Berry. If I may, I would just say that I think that is part of the reason why this ballot measure is being put forward. There is no tax yet with it, but the suggestion is that we not take more money from the general fund that could be used to fund some of those things that you're talking about, and instead find money that already exists and or create a new tax to pay for police staffing. And just as someone who's, you know, been in advocacy and worked at the board, I know this comes up every year. Every year it's a huge fight, and so this may be one way to alleviate that fight for us to be able to actually focus on fighting and winning for many of the priorities that we needed, that we know the city so desperately needs. So thank you for your comment, and I hope, yeah, I know it's a struggle, but I think it makes sense.
Thank you.
Member Lee.
Yeah, I have a few comments I wanted to share. I recognize that this is a very complicated measure that had a confusing and very complicated path to make it to the ballot. And I really want to respect and acknowledge the advocacy and engagement in this measure on this topic around policing, police staffing, safety, and the needs of San Francisco. I really appreciate particularly the work of our labor leaders, those I see in the room here as well. I also acknowledge that this is not necessarily a new conversation, and I really deeply respected and strongly supported the work that former board president and supervisor Norman Yee had done a few years ago as it pertained to police staffing. I think we all know we are in a crisis with law enforcement, and you can define that in many different ways. And I think that there are a couple questions I regularly ask myself. I think you all know that on the BART board, we have our own BART police department. I don't want to compare that to SMPD in any way, but I think it's given me a lot of insight into policing and managing a police department. So questions I ask myself: one, what does it take to have a reliable police force and police department that we can trust to do their jobs? And I say that whether you're someone who is very, you know, law and order and wants to see more cops, to, you know, different communities of color, particularly Black and brown communities, who have never seen police as, you know, a safety net for their communities. The second question I ask myself is, how can we transform our police force to meet what our communities need, and, you know, in 2023, and what policing looks like beyond? And when I think about what we've done at BART, I'm incredibly proud, because I think of this as I consider not only Prop B, but also Prop E on police policies and procedures. So at BART, we recently, and I led this, and we had a 9-0 vote, significantly increased police salaries. And you'd be like, wow, Janice, you were the one who like ate sandwiches at BART, and we're like, no to cops. Like, how did that happen? We realized that we needed to tie raises directly to deployment to improve response times, because we knew that people riding BART didn't want to see cops around. They wanted to make sure when something happened, there would be a police officer, if that is what's needed, to be there. And we actually have, for priority 1 crimes, a response time of under 4 minutes. I can tell you that's not what SFPD or Oakland has right now. The second thing is we really, really empower our chief, and we hold him accountable through our general manager. He must report at least quarterly to our board, and I work closely with him as someone who's on that board. Next, through him, we've also significantly increased transparency through better data collection and reporting. We've significantly transformed the kind of data that gets reported out. And then the last thing, and this is something which leads me to the position I take on Prop B, which is that at BART, I think you all know, we have worked over the last several years to establish civilian safety force through ambassadors, social workers, and a variety of attendant programs. Because the truth is, no one wants to be a police officer today. And if we just keep increasing, you know, if we think that we can address vacancies by simply throwing money at the problem and increasing numbers and increasing staffing levels, we're not. We might for a moment. And I'm gonna be honest, I know that, and I made these comments at the bar board, when we passed those salary increases for police, it was a stopgap measure, a short-term solution. And if anyone thinks here that even if we didn't have to go after taxes, even if we didn't have, these budget cuts for a general fund or whatever, if you really thought that you could dump tons of money and fill our vacancies, I'm sorry, but that is just not what policing looks like today. I know there's decent number of young folks who are around my age. Do you have friends? Folks our age don't want to become cops. That's not going to change. And what we really need to do is really rethink what our safety presence actually looks like to build trust in our communities, build response times, and meet the needs. Because again, whether you are very pro-cops or anti-cops, there's a massive distrust in whether our existing police force is even doing the jobs that we expect them to do today. So, I think given this, I cannot support Prop B, and I also will not be supporting the police procedures and policies, because I don't think that voting yes, and even if that tax measure were to come through, is actually building that trust and making our police force a better police force to respond to our safety needs of this moment. So thank you for giving me a moment to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Member Lee. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Member Thomas.
Colleagues, I'd like to start by saying that I was one of the first people to talk publicly on this measure when it was at the Board of Supervisors. A ton of public sector workers showed up and testified when this item was first being discussed. And this is fundamentally about fiscal responsibility. It is about making sure that if you want to propose an idea that you are going to pay for it. We've seen this at the national level all the time. We see Republicans strip down taxes and spend a bunch on the military and do all kinds of things and then claim the government's broke. And we can see similar things happening locally, where we have proposals to spend money on things, and then the mayor comes out today and says there's a big deficit. And this is a strong statement that says, if you have a proposal, if you believe in a proposal around whether it's law enforcement or something, that you pay for it. This conditions this staffing measure on future funding. And I think that's why labor supports it so strongly. We heard from members of every chair of the Public Employees Committee and the San Francisco Labor Council's backing this, because we believe in responsible local government, that if you're going to propose an idea that you need to pay for it, and that the voters need to support paying for that. You can't just pull money out and then claim, oh no, we don't have any money there. You can't cut all these programs that we've talked about that we think are really important because there's a budget shortfall, but then you lump in some new programs. And this sends a strong signal to City Hall that you have to pay for things when you propose them. So when they propose things like police officer staffing, that it must be conditioned on future funding. So I implore everybody here to please vote yes in support of this.
Thank you, Member Thomas.
I just want to say, and I'm not going to repeat what everyone has said, but I stand strong supporting of Measure B. I think we heard loud and clear that the city and county of San Francisco is in a budget deficit of $728 million. And so basically, what this is doing, and we heard it, that we're being fiscal responsible. If you want to be able to tap into the general fund, this is not a way of doing it, because you're going to be cutting other resources and taking resources from essential service workers, from civil servants, from 911 operators, from other services that are really important. And I think this measure really creates transparency for what this funding is going to be for, rather than saying we're going to go and get this money in the general funds and who cares what happens to the other program, but rather we're being fiscal responsible and we're being transparent, because this money is going to be specifically in providing funds to the police officers here in San Francisco. And with that, I urge my colleagues here to stand with labor and support this measure.
Thank you, Member Ibanez. I don't see any other hands. Oh, Member Chen.
Hi, I just wanted to make one more comment, is that
I hope in the future when we do have that tax come up to pay for everything, I hope that there will be programs to also go along with the staffing to help our youth. Specifically, I was a product of a youth program, a youth empowerment program, and I think because of that, I'm here today. I could have, like, I know some friends, they did not do too well like I did, but they didn't have the guidance that I did. So I really do believe that we need to put more money back into these type of programs that kind of guide our youth, to a different path. So I'm hoping that not only do we have money for police staffing, but we have more money for programs for our youth and, to get out of the system.
Thank you, Member Chen. All right, I think we can go for a vote.
Great, okay, Vivi Garcia.
Prop B, police staffing levels, your options are yes, no, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
Yes.
Baraka.
Yes.
Barry.
Pass.
Campos.
Yes.
Shen.
Yes.
Duffy.
Yes.
Yolanda.
Yes.
Ibanez.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Lacroix.
Yes.
Lee.
No.
Loftus.
No.
Lovett.
Pass.
Mahogany.
Yes.
Mandelman.
No.
Mar.
Yes.
Maliga.
Yes.
Braza.
Yes.
Raju.
Abstain.
Ryan's here. Thomas.
Yes.
Tom.
No.
Williams excused. Zoe.
Yes.
Pelosi.
Abstain.
Mullen. Clock's are not here. Ma.
Abstain.
Cohen.
Abstain.
Wiener.
No.
Haney.
Yes.
Ting.
Yes.
There are 17 yes, 5 no, and 4 abstain.
I pass.
Congratulations.
I pass.
Prop B, oh, I'm sorry, yes, Member Berry.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go back.
Thank you.
Apologies. Member Barry.
Abstain.
17 yes.
Love it.
Love it.
Oh, apologies.
Abstain.
Sorry. So 17 yes, 5 no, 6 abstain. So measure passes.
Congratulations, Prop B.
Prop B, thank you.
All right.
Right. So Measure C is an initiative ordinance, and this is a real estate transfer tax exemption and office space allocation. Okay, let's break that down for those in the room. So can we convert office buildings into residential buildings? Yes, we can, and the city has already done some of that. Do we need to exempt property sellers from the transfer tax? No. You can see where I'm going with recommendation. So this measure does nothing for affordable housing. Unlike, state AB 2011, which fast tracks 100% affordable housing among other projects, unused commercial zones. The transfer tax for San Francisco and for other jurisdictions is a really important source of funding. We were just talking about like fiscal responsibility and how serious our deficit is in the next 2 years, and more than 2 years, right? It's something that even in lean budget years, we've brought in a lot of money. And this is in the vein actually of the overpaid executive tax, thanks to Supervisor Haney when he was supervisor, former supervisor. That has brought in like $140 million annualized. This is another of those progressive taxes. And even in a bad budget year, in 22-23, we brought in totality about just a little less, about $180 some million through this tax. And the year before that, it was $500 million. Yes, it can be a volatile tax. It's a one-time, tax upon the transfer, but it really means that billionaires get to pay. Because remember this Prop 13? If you haven't lived in California, right, you don't understand how painful Prop 13 is for city budgets. In fact, this is kind of a way to rectify. So the ballot measure is not just about exempting sales of certain office buildings, older buildings. It's actually gonna open the door to slashing potential funds from the transfer tax. And by a simple majority, 6 votes of the Board of Supervisors. And it's curious because the last 2 times that we passed an increase in the transfer taxes was 2020 and then 2016 before that. And really on properties that were more than $5 million and actually significantly like brought in extra money on properties 10 million more. Like who has a $10 million building here? Not I. So it's an important source of funding, and when we are in a deficit for years, we cannot afford to have a, kind of politics play in and also undo what voters have previously voted for with transfer tax increases. So this is resounding no on the transfer tax exemption. That is our recommendation for the committee. Do we want any discussion here?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to make it clear that I am in support of transferring these spaces into housing. However, doing it in a way that does not guarantee shelters and deeply affordable housing, and that possibly could result in more market rate housing when there's abundance of vacancies in the city. That's disgusting at this point. And also to give these rich people more tax breaks and then profit again off of that same space by individualizing them and selling them again. I'm voting no on this one.
I will say, I would like to add just a little comment here, which is that we do know that office to housing conversions are very expensive. And so there is, I do understand why people would want to remove that tax, but I also understand that it is a huge boon to our city, and so it is hard to reconcile the two. But office to housing conversions are very expensive, and people aren't going to the office as much anymore. We do need to figure out a way to pay for them. So I just wanted to raise that point. I do think it's a little complicated, but I agree that we do really rely on a lot of that. Oh, sorry, member.
I was just gonna actually, support that position. I would have actually supported this real estate transfer tax exemption for office to housing conversion. Not because I like tax breaks, but one, I agree it's very expensive to do and we want to encourage it. But also, very few office buildings can convert, so it wouldn't have a huge impact on the general fund. But the reason why I'm voting against it is because it decided to go after the rest of our general real estate transfer tax. And that impacts measures like what Supervisor John Alvalos introduced, and also what I introduced in 2016 to make City College tuition free. And that I cannot support. And so I think it's very unfortunate that they included that in that, because I think they could have had a measure that probably would have, built a bigger coalition consensus.
Thank you, Member Kim.
Also,
Member Banos?
I mean, this is not one of those measures that you have to really think really hard. First and foremost, this is a very anti-union measure. It actually excluded our labor brothers and sisters and siblings to be part of this. Specifically, there's language in there that would actually convert hotels into housing, and it's a fight that we have taken in the past, which means that they will leave out, basically hotel workers will not be able to have jobs, specifically union workers, good paying jobs. And so this measure makes it really easy for me, the way it's written, to vote against it, because it doesn't really benefit anyone. I believe that no one here is a millionaire or a billionaire, and if you are, I don't know, you may be the only one who will be benefiting from this measure. I wouldn't. I don't think my colleagues here would benefit from it. It's, to me, in my eyes, it's basically, it's anti-democratic, it's anti-union, and the reason why I say I'm anti-democratic, it's because right now we do have a transfer tax that was voted by the voters, and this one would take that power and will put it on the hands of the supervisors. 6 supervisors will be making decisions instead of coming to the voters the way it is right now. So that's why I say it's anti-democratic. I explain why it's anti-union, but to me also it's anti-working families, middle class, because basically the money, it's not to build, affordable housing, but actually market rate luxury homes. And I'm sorry, I think San Francisco has too many of those. And so, yeah, so for me, I'm a strong no on this measure.
Thank you, Member Banez. Member Thomas.
I'm joining my colleagues in saying that I think there might have been a version of this that could be successful. I was shocked just reading this to not see that there weren't labor standards requirements that were put in this. That seems like a pretty simple negotiation. The lack of engagement with labor over sort of basic functions, or even sort of the other provisions that go possibly after previous pieces of legislation, are alarming. While the concept of converting office space to housing sounds great on its face, that's not necessarily what this bill does. It's a tax change, and looking at how that operates, I think it's pretty clumsy, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't do, the authors didn't do sort of the basic efforts of engaging with stakeholders and labor to make it something that could have been a consensus ballot measure. It almost feels like it was designed to be a wedge ballot measure. So I'll be voting no.
Anyone else? Nope, I don't see anyone else. Member Levitt?
Alright, so let's do the roll call then.
Prop C, real estate transfer tax, options yes, no, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos,
No.
Baraka,
No.
Ferry,
No.
Campos,
No.
Chen,
No.
Dufty,
No.
Galata,
No.
Ibanez,
No.
Kim,
No.
Lacroix,
No.
Lee,
Abstain.
Loftus,
Yes.
Lovett,
No.
Mahogany,
Abstain.
Mandelman,
Yes.
Mar,
No.
Maliga,
No.
Peraza,
No.
Raju,
No.
Ronan, not here, Thomas,
No.
Tom,
Yes.
Love's excused, Zoe,
No.
Pelosi,
Yes.
Ma,
Yes.
Cohen,
Abstain.
Wiener,
Yes.
Haney,
Abstain.
Ting,
Abstain.
apologies, my formula's not working. There are 6 yeses, 17 noes, 5 abstentions. This measure passes.
Or does not receive.
Sorry, does not pass. Apologies.
Alright, Proposition D.
Okay. Proposition D is an initiative ordinance to change local ethics laws. So if Prop A is apple pie, I think Prop D is maybe some Robitussin or some good medicine, the antidote to public corruption in our city. This is a pretty straightforward, common sense, good government measure that will help reduce pay-to-play politics. It expands gift prohibitions for city officers, expands rules prohibiting bribery, and I think most importantly, requires voter approval or supermajority votes by both the Board of Supervisors and the City Ethics Commission to amend city ethic laws. So it raises a higher bar to really keep intact these ethics laws, and this was put forward on the ballot by the Ethics Commission as well. So this is really important to shore up our city's good governance and ethics laws. So we recommend a yes vote.
I have a question for the committee, or maybe the chairs or you, Member Galata. There doesn't seem to really be a campaign or a lot of people talking about this. And I don't think anyone came to Saturday to present. Why?
Is this put forward by the Ethics Commission?
Sure, but like there's been like Friends of Ethics, there's been past like ethics ballot measures that usually Friends of Ethics like would brief me, you know, they would speak on it, but there wasn't for this, which was surprising to me. I don't know if anyone knows why.
We do not know why. I just went through the litany of what we did to pull people out of the woodwork if they were not listed in SF elections, and they were like, we're ethics, right? Whereas we had people who were city leaders showing up in their non-government capacity for the other measures, but I think ethics was kind of sticking to ethics. We were also kind of, reaching out to the network and to Democratic clubs, and I had gotten wind that maybe President Peskin might know, and he's like, don't know. So here we are.
Interesting. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, do you want to take a vote?
Prop D, changes to local ethics laws. Options, yes, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
Yes.
Baraka.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Campos.
Yes.
Shen.
Yes.
Dufty.
Yes.
Galata.
Yes.
Ibanez.
Yes.
Kim.
Abstain.
Qua.
Yes.
Lee.
Pass.
Loftus.
Yes.
Lovett.
Yes.
Mahogany.
Yes.
Mandelman.
Abstain.
Mar.
Yes.
Maliga.
Yes.
Braza.
Yes.
Raju.
Yes.
Ronan. That's not here. Thomas.
Yes.
Tung.
Pass.
Zoe.
Yes.
Pelosi.
Yes.
Ma.
Abstain.
Cohen.
Abstain.
Wiener.
Abstain.
Haney.
Abstain.
Ting.
Yes.
Going back to Lee.
Abstain.
Tung.
Abstain. Thank you.
There's 20 yes and 8 abstain. This measure is endorsed.
Prop E.
That's you.
That's me again. All right. Prop E is an initiative ordinance regarding police department policies and procedures. It's also being called or referred to as Safer San Francisco. I think this measure really, the devil's kind of in the details here, and so I'm going to talk just a little bit about just what is really in this measure, and I think concerns that have been raised about this measure. So there's a lot in here, so this is a little bit of a sausage. There's major changes to the police department policies being proposed here. One, this would limit the police commission's ability to change SFPD policy unless meetings are conducted in every police district in the city, which places a really onerous administrative burden on the commission and impedes their oversight authority. This also will change the practice of written use of force reports, which would only be required now if the officer's use of force actually injures a person, whereas currently reports are required whenever a police officer draws a firearm. This proposal also impacts surveillance, and this is a key point of concern, I think, in this measure. So this proposal will allow officers to install and use publicly owned surveillance cameras and as well as drones to potentially apprehend suspects. It will also allow the police department to use new technology without going through the board's process for vetting new technology used by city departments. It also potentially opens up the use of facial recognition technology and allowing that to be used again without oversight or approval from the Board of Supervisors regarding use of that technology. So these are some of the, I think, issues in this measure that really raise concerns. Concerns have been raised by a number of groups, including the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights as well as the ACLU. Those concerns pointing to the potential for greater surveillance and policing of Black and brown communities, as well as the fact that there's already a significant amount of surveillance in people's everyday lives already, in terms of private cameras that you see on private properties. And also the use of drones, as proposed in this measure, could violate constitutionally protected privacy rights that we have here in California. So for these reasons, our Issues Committee is recommending a no on Proposition E.
Would anyone like to comment? Member Lee?
Yeah, I'll be really quick on this. As I previewed earlier, maybe voting no on this as a, and to not endorse, to oppose this. First, I really feel like this should have taken a legislative path and not gone to the voters. I know Mayor Breen was like, well, you know what, I'm putting this idea forward and, the voters will decide whether this is what they really want. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want voters to be getting into the sausage making of police code. I don't think that I am well versed in really what the tools of, policing, what the tools are needed, what the real hangups are. And I certainly don't think that voters in a 50+1 kind of way should be the ones determining that. Second, I'm deeply concerned with the technology and protocols that this measure allows. Do we really need drones? Is like that what's going to increase safety in our community? Is that what's going to make people feel like, all right, police are really on top of those like priority 1 crimes? Do we really need to bring back vehicle pursuits, which this would allow? I understand that there are going to be safety measures in place, but I don't want vehicle pursuits. I live a block away from the Richmond police station. Like, I don't want vehicle pursuits. And third, there's not really evidence that increased surveillance means increased safety. We've seen the proliferation of Nest and Ring cameras. Has that actually cut down on like porch thefts? Are Asian seniors feeling more safe because we have a ton of Ring cameras? I've not seen that logic model that goes from more cameras means more evidence, which means, a decrease in those crimes. And lastly, there's this, argument that, streamlining protocols is going to decrease paperwork, but anecdotally, and I particularly hear this in the Chinese community, but I've heard it from others where, I've seen read all the SF Chronicle articles about small businesses whose businesses were broken into. It takes forever for cops to get there. When the cops get there, they're not super helpful. Or if, you had your home broken into or you were assaulted on the street, you go to the police department, you get questioned, things take forever, it's obscure. It does not seem to me that the hang up is really around streamlining processes and decreasing paperwork. I think there are many other issues and different ways that we can empower the police force to do its job and rebuild trust, and I just really don't see how this measure systemically deals with some of those root issues.
Thank you, Member. Thank you, Member Lee. Member Lovett.
Thank you for making this really important points, Member Lee. And I will say that there's a lot of context around how this measure would change how the police commission operates. So if we look back over just the last year or two, we see that the mayor had actually asked the police commissioners to write letters of resignation that her office could hold on to, and that was not a cool thing. But basically, it's like if you're appointed, we understand, right? Appointments carry a lot of weight. The police commission is just really, such a high profile and high stakes commission, but it's an oversight body. And we don't have that for housing. We just got one for homelessness, but the role of the commissioners is really important, and they get to set policy. This really seems like a cynical way to disempower the police commission from the work that it should be doing and it is doing, and with as much independence as that body could do.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lovett. Member Berry.
Thank you, Chair. It really disturbed me to hear that use of force reports may not be required if this passes if there's not an injury that's been done to a person. Me as a mother who had their daughter have a gun held to her head by a San Francisco police officer because the announcement on the radio was, everybody black in this area, arrest them right now. This disturbs me. She had trauma that day because it was at the BART, and all she could think of was Oscar Grant. She has trauma to this day, and so do I. Most people don't even file the DPA, the police accountability. Yeah, most people don't even file a DPA. They have these experiences, and they just let that trauma filter inside them, and maybe even affect it come out on people in other ways, you know? So that is disgusting to want to get rid of that report. And then I would like to say, I probably, and you can argue with me if I'm wrong, probably hold the record of how many police commission meetings I've attended. And let me tell you, if you're gonna make it a requirement to go in every district and hold a meeting, you are gonna slow process to a worse than it already is, because it's terrible right now. And guess what? Hardly no one comes to the meetings now. How in the hell are you gonna get people in every district to attend these meetings? Next point on this is, they do have, they just finished a new program where they invite people to participate in the process, to work on the general orders that are supposed to be reformed, which they are behind on doing. And that went very well. Me, myself, attended one of these programs when, around the time we got Chief Syrup out of here. I attended, the NAACP held a big thing done by DeAnthony Jones where we had all the general orders listed up, and we saw loopholes in them, and we helped with the community to see what needs to be changed. And that was, I don't know how many years ago, but they could still do that. You know, but to require each district to do it, good luck on that. And back to my final point, which I alluded to, is the blue ribbon panel requirements of this police department and the U.S. Justice Reform instructions on what needed to be done by the police commission is behind and slow, and they have the police chief on that body and the SFPOA fighting every step along the way, that to take power away from them, we ain't gonna get nothing done. And I had another point. Ugh, this really bothers me. But I'll yield. But yeah, I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Thank you, Member Berry. Anyone else? Member Peraza?
Thank you, Chair. I do want to say the comparative analysis between this proposition and Proposition B was very alarming and very apparent to me. Reading this proposition in front of me, there are many red flags. And it is clear that SFPD is growing and developing in a scope that it has no bounds. And that is pretty alarming. Reading about the use of facial recognition technology was something that was tough to digest, just because what are the racial biases of facial technology? It's not something that we know or are aware of, and you know, is this something that we can really trust SFPD with? Also, the other component was that the chief of police could waive the process of holding one community meeting at each district police station to solicit feedback. And the chief of police having this power to waive this process without the oversight of the commission was also something that was very much of a red flag for me. Along with a vehicle pursuit would be allowed for an officer that has a reasonable suspicion that a person is committing or is likely to commit. Likely is the key word here. So what are the grounds of the assessment that a person is committing a felony or a violent misdemeanor? So, yeah, I think that this is something that I encourage other members to definitely vote no on.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Peraza. Member Berry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. I remember my point. I wanted to make a point that me being a former correction officer, let's be clear. These officers are not getting off, well, they are getting off pretty lightly when it comes to discipline. You look at the discipline reports, it's on the Police Commission website. All these things they're doing, I mean, even murder. Killer Jessica Williams only got 40 days off. In the law enforcement world, that's wonderful. 40 days vacation, you make that up in overtime so quick it don't make no sense. So for people who think this is make tough on crime, this is gonna get rid of crime if we buckle down on these police commissioners and take away their power, and this is gonna make city great again. No, it's false premises. It's gonna probably not even get 40 days off work for murder. Probably nothing at all. So again, I'm voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Berry. At this time, can we take a vote?
Prop E, police policies and procedures, options, yes, no, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
No.
Baraka.
No.
Barry.
No.
Campos.
No.
Chen.
No.
Duff.
No.
Galata.
No.
Ibanez.
No.
Kim.
No.
Lacroix.
No.
Lee.
No.
Loftus.
Abstain.
Lovett.
No.
Mahogany.
No.
Mandelman.
Yes.
Mar.
No.
Melita.
No.
Peraza.
No.
Raju.
No.
Ronan. Thomas.
No.
Tung.
Yes.
Zoe.
No.
Pelosi.
Abstain.
Ma.
Abstain.
Cohen.
No endorsement.
Wiener.
Yes.
Haney.
Abstain.
Ting.
Abstain.
3 yes, 19 no, 5 abstain. This measure is not endorsed.
Move on to Prop F.
Okay. 2 more to go. So Prop F is an initiative ordinance, illegal substance dependence screening and treatment for recipients of city public assistance. So we recommend a no on this. Here are some reasons. So recipients of county adult assistance programs who are suspected of drug addiction, who need to undergo screening and enter treatment to keep their benefits. So we understand that they don't have to be treated at the end of it, so they're not measuring outcomes, right? And also I asked a question when Matt Dorsey was at the endorsement interviews, does this affect dependents? So this is not going to be for assistance programs that involve dependents. Okay, that's so far so good. But here are some important statistics. According to the Human Services, the city's Human Services Agency, when they looked at those who died of overdose deaths, about 13% were recipients of CAAP. So how are you solving the problem? And how can you more broadly solve a very important problem, whether it's in the streets or in the homes around fentanyl and some very serious addictions, right? Like, is this the way? Also, important to note that about a dozen states mandate drug treatment for receiving welfare. And most of those are deep red states. So this sounds like something out of the Republican playbook. Here's another really troubling statistic. So there's 5,100 recipients of CAAP, and of those, 18% are Black. This is, compared to 6% of, where the Black population now is in San Francisco. So that's like 3 times. So are we going to be disproportionately affecting certain communities of color when we do this? And also it's when they're suspected drug addiction. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to go through the screening, right? Is there going to be some profiling going on? Those are real concerns. And finally, in 2016, Boston University researchers concluded that mandatory drug treatment does not Dr. Fabienne Hariga, who's an advisor to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, said, quote, "The United Nations therefore calls on states to transition from mandatory drug treatment and implement voluntary, evidence-informed, and rights-based health and social services in the community." You know, people are really struggling, and that is what we need more of, right? Punishing people, depriving people of benefits, causes and snowballs, you know, all the traumas that have happened to create further traumas, you know, further disruption, not only to their lives, but to the community. So we say no from the committee. Anyone want to speak on this?
Member Berry?
Definitely. Thank you, Chair. I'm projecting because we do not have a mic. I'm not trying to yell at anyone because, you know, Black women talk loud, we get accused of things. But I wanted to say that first of all, let's not be hypocrites. There's people who work for the city, are in government, and get paid by taxpayer money and are buying drugs that are housed. Do we want them all drug tested too? How many of those folks would come up dirty? Do we want to cut their pay and send them to a drug program? Or is it just certain people you want to do this to? Do you think people who are working and housed don't use drugs? Do you think people who are not on public assistance are clean of drugs? Scary if you do think that. I would also like to say that I'm boots on the ground. I talk with some people that you guys might, not you guys, but some folks might walk on by or step over or whatever, or grab your purse or whatever. I don't do that. I talk to everybody. And I ran this by the streets. And they said that, one, there's not enough drug programs, that some of them are waiting on beds. There isn't a bed to go to. Two, they said this will get people killed. There's people with their little subsidies, old people money, for rent. There's people renting out people cars at night just to sleep in, $20 a week. And they're paying that out of their little welfare check. Also, when I was homeless, I went on public assistance for maybe 90 days. I couldn't take it. I went on for about 90 days. And it's so easy to miss an appointment you're supposed to be at. It's so easy to get stereotyped as someone who might have been on drugs. They're making me go to drug programs. I don't even use drugs. So I kept refusing, getting rolled up and not complying type reports written on me. Until I had to pull the female card and just say, I don't feel safe in these programs, so they made me not go to them anymore. Lastly, I want to say, if you think you could force somebody into a drug program and give them a certificate, I challenge you to go down to Salvation Army program. Some of the men, and I don't know if they have women there, but some folks there who I talked to do the whole program. 2 years clean. Everybody give them a certificate at the end, feels good. They walk out the door, ain't got nowhere to go. Get depressed, what you think gonna happen? And what happens is, they end up going back using and forgetting and not knowing the science that they can't go back to that same dose they started on when they went into the program. You're gonna OD. So I'm voting no on this, and I encourage people, if you really care about treatment for people, to vote no on this.
Thank you, Member Berry. I will just speak on this as well. I, just as a social worker and as someone who's worked with unhoused people and with people with addiction, we know that the best way to get people sober is to get them housed. And that people, when they are unhoused, really struggle, and some people actually turn to drug use as a way of staying safe because they have to stay awake so they don't get attacked, especially women and trans folks. So I'm disturbed by any proposition that would take money away out of the pockets of the people who are most vulnerable, who are already struggling, who are already marginally housed. I think that will cause more people to end up on our streets, worsen our homelessness crisis, and it will not get people into treatment. Member Oblos. Member Thomas.
I'd like to comment. When I went around talking to some of our members who do field operations and work out in the field on this issue, I was surprised. A lot of them work with a lot of folks that are in the most vulnerable state and rely on these funds regularly. And when we brought this up, just to kind of get an idea from them, overwhelming response was that they were opposed to this. Their thought was, you're taking the most vulnerable folks, most destitute folks, and you're creating bureaucratic steps for them to receive sustenance, and then you're taking folks and putting them in a very, very difficult position to just get the bare minimum, and making it a little bit harder, and then putting those desperate folks right out there again. And so our field ops folks, I was talking to them, they were like, no, those desperate folks are now creating there's an even more unsafe environment that we have, because you've made folks that were already very desperate even more desperate. And so it was pretty common throughout all the times that I had discussions with folks that they were fundamentally opposed to this, because you're creating, and I say this as a bureaucrat, who doesn't normally mind having steps and things like that, but you normally want sophisticated actors or folks that have a capacity to do things to abide by extensive regulations. Here you're taking the least capable folks of navigating more bureaucracy and slapping more bureaucracy on top of it. It just doesn't make sense. So I'd be voting no.
Thank you, Member Thomas. Member Peraza.
Thank you, Chair. I also do echo that this proposition, I believe, is another layer of bureaucracy that I think is not needed. It is another layer of bureaucracy in a system that has proven to not be functioning at this time. So it not only places a burden on folks that are going to be impacted by this, but also on city employees that have to make this process work. I also do echo that this is also hypocritical in some sense, because take for example safe consumption sites. You cannot stand for that, but stand also for this. I do believe that this proposition, does not uphold foundational principles of empathy, compassion, and granting personal agency to folks that want to get out of addiction. So I also do concur with some of my members that this, I believe, does not really uphold the path that San Francisco should take.
Thank you, Member Peraza. Anyone else? All right, can we take a vote on this ballot measure?
Prop F, legal substances, legal substance dependence, screening treatment, options yes, no, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
Hell no.
Braga.
No.
Barry.
No.
Campos.
No.
Chen.
No.
Duffy.
He also wrote hell no.
Galata.
No.
Ibanez.
Absolutely not.
Kim.
No.
Lacroix.
No.
Lee.
No.
Loftus.
Abstain.
Lovett.
No.
Mahogany.
No.
Mandelman.
Yes.
Mar.
No.
Maliga.
No.
Peraza.
No.
Raju.
No.
Thomas.
No.
Tung.
Pass.
Zoe.
No.
Pelosi.
No endorsement.
Ma.
Abstain.
Cohen.
No endorsement.
Wiener.
Abstain.
Haney.
No.
Ting.
Abstain.
Abstain.
1 yes, 20 no's, 5 abstentions, 2 no endorsement. measure is now endorsed.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Understand.
Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead.
last but not least, let's see if we can do some algebra here. Actually, we're gonna talk about algebra. Do you remember taking algebra?
Yes, I do.
I remember taking algebra. Okay, G, declaration of policy offering algebra 1 to 8th graders. So we actually recommend a no endorsement. We don't think DCCC should be in a place to take a position on something like this. I mean, this is education curriculum policy, and why isn't it a purview of voters? And why are we spending taxpayer dollars even on this particular measure? These are things to be decided by the SFUSD Board of Education, right? So as a declaration of policy, I think we know that there's not going to be any teeth to this, right? It's just kind of saying the voters are enjoining the school district to look at this, but let's look at the data. So before 2014, when Common Core was implemented, there was 8th grade algebra. And during those years, the majority of students actually failed that class when it was taken in 8th grade. So now we have the Common Core, and so math has become so political. There could have been ways to sort of approach this outside of bringing it to a ballot measure. But the issue is to have options for students to go into STEM fields. Well, SFUSD has already started taking action and through a math policy working group. At the Saturday call, we were hearing that teachers and also education experts were not consulted. And so we also are asking, why are we taking a stance on this when there are so many other issues that are impacting our public schools right now, right? Like the budgets, there's talk about closures on the line, and there's just been so many faculty and staff who have left the city and they're trying to bring them back. There are a lot of bigger problems in terms of what the school district needs to solve. So we recommend that we do not take positions.
Member Berry and then Member Banez.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
First of all, I'm weird. I love math. I wish I could have took algebra in elementary school. However, what concerns me is that teachers were not involved in this process. And who knows better than the teachers that are in the classroom? My daughter's a teacher. I feel like this ballot measure maybe made somebody some money, or it's gonna be used politically against somebody to get recalled, or maybe just used some way that, because was said, there's no teeth in it, there's nothing the Board of Supervisors can do about it. It's just a trigger, like a trigger ballot, to trigger people. So, I want to conclude by saying that I think it's sad that in this country, we're not working harder on math, period, regardless of algebra, just math, period, on how to engage children in a younger age and to find what works best for them. I remember my daughter did not get math, and I'm a math person, and I would go crazy, why can't this girl understand this math? And then in 9th grade, she had a teacher that taught her Asian math, and it just clicked, and she got it. And it's like, why isn't there more being done at a younger age to see what makes these minds click so that we can compete with other countries that come here to get our jobs that are math-based? What is this country doing wrong? So that's pretty much my comment, and I yield.
Thank you. As an educator and someone that's in the classroom, it is very obvious that this measure is a divisive measure, and it's very politicizing to really create division in terms of who is going to provide math to 8th grade when there's research that shows that developmentally many students are not ready for Algebra 1 in 8th grade. In San Francisco, and there's also a lot of research that states that Algebra 1 for middle schools, it's kind of like a gatekeeper. It shows like only certain kids are gonna be able to take higher math, and it's gonna be leaving the rest of us. And when I say the rest of us, it's because again, Black and brown and poor kids mostly will be left out in taking those higher courses in high school. What SFUSD, and thank you for stating the research, Member Lovett, that SFUSD changed Algebra 1 to pre-algebra in middle school because they wanted to ensure that students were not being tracked. We know that track does not work. Track, basically, again, it's that gatekeeper of who gets to go to college and who doesn't. And so Algebra 1 in 8th grade does the same thing. And right now, when you look at the research, even if you just go to SFUSD, when you compare SFUSD test scores at the state level, we at SFUSD, we're actually surpassing the rest of the state. We're doing much better in math. So why would you propose something that's to change what's working? The other thing too, again, educators were not consulted. We heard from one of our middle school teachers at the interviewing meeting on Saturday, who's actually a middle school math teacher. Not only is she a middle school math teacher, she's actually a leader within UESF. She's also a leader within the state and at the national level. And she clearly stated, we were not invited, and this does not make sense. And again, she also talked about how this is going to track students. We've done we've tracking students, it's something that should be from the past, and so it's something that SFUSD should not even implement, even if it's a declaration of policy. The other thing too, SFUSD is facing a $4 million budget deficit. And when you think about curriculum, you also have to think about funding. And also you have to think, who are the experts to develop the curriculum? And not only the developing of the curriculum, but who's going to be implementing it? And what are the strategies that you have to use? And those experts are educators, are math teachers who really know this. The Math and Equity Caucus of our math teachers, all of them oppose this. I also talked to my middle school math teachers. I work at Buena Vista Horseman, and they also oppose this, and they were really upset. And so I urge you guys to stand with educators, to really let the educators do their work. And whether this is symbolic or not, work with us. As educators, we work with people. We want to work with it. If there's something that we need to improve and make it better, work with us. We will be delighted. But don't come in and we know better than you because we want to provide math or basically Algebra 1 to certain students, and we're going to leave everyone else out. That's what this is about. So please vote no on this proposition.
Thank you, Member Banez. Member Braza.
Thank you, Chair. I very much appreciate the comments of the members on the board. I also appreciate that a teacher came to deliver public comment as well. Thank you so much.
I'm a parent, actually.
So sorry.
On behalf of
Got it.
parent.
But thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to stay very late. I do want to say that I'm very saddened that there wasn't input asked of the teachers and the faculty. That was something that just became aware to me now. However, I do want to speak about this in my own personal behalf. As an undocumented immigrant that came to this country at the age of 7, and as somebody that took algebra during 8th grade, taking algebra really allowed me to prepare myself for college. and prepare myself for college in a landscape that was very highly competitive. I didn't have access to FAFSA. I had very limited resources for funding to go to college. And because of that, I had to make myself, I had to prepare to apply for scholarships that would then grant me money in order to attend college. So I will say without that push and that support that I got to take algebra in 8th grade, and then allow me to take geometry in 9th grade, trigonometry, and then make my way into AP Physics and AP Chem, that would not have been able to happen without the essential knowledge that I gained from algebra. And I also have to take into account that what I am saying and where I am speaking from is from undocumented students, folks that are not going to have the funding to attend college like many students in USD. So that is also where I am speaking from, considering that San Francisco is a city to many immigrants. I would hope that the city in some way can uphold a certain quality and a certain standard of curriculum, especially math curriculum, in the same way that queer history is essential for the formative years of children. So I just do want to specify that I will be voting in support for this proposition from my own personal experience and from the value that I gained from taking algebra in the 8th grade.
Member Tung.
Thank you, Chair Mahogany. Thank you, Member Peraza, for sharing. I also want to speak in support of Prop G. Algebra at the 8th grade level is a mechanism to uplift all communities and students who are gifted in math. I don't think that there is any part of this policy statement that is gatekeeping. In fact, there are many examples of people who have gone on to do many great things and become successful in their communities, even though, and they were able to lift themselves up out of different socioeconomic and political situations to excel. If you do not have opportunities to take algebra at the 8th grade, you are severely handicapped in higher math and STEM, especially once you get to the collegiate level. You are behind all of your classmates who have had that opportunity. And I think that in terms of what we should stand for in San Francisco is for excellence at whatever level you can achieve. And if that means you can take algebra in the 8th grade, you should be able to take algebra in the 8th grade. You shouldn't have to pay to take algebra at the 8th grade level. You shouldn't have to have your grandparents pay for it because your parents can't pay for it. If you are gifted and the school system can support it, we should let people learn math. We should let them learn math. And I will be supporting Prop G for endorsement by this body.
Thank you, Member Tung.
I want to say something else. I do acknowledge that this proposition encourages the school district to offer Algebra 1, which is why I support it. Were it to require it, that we would be having a different conversation, and I would obviously have a very different stance.
Anyone else?
That's a question of the
Sure.
endorsement committee. Thank you, Chair. Is there any truth to that people who do get to take algebra, if this became a thing, that they would have to be recommended by the teachers or by some body? Is there anything that you know about that?
So you're saying if this measure passes, then would the students have to be
Recommended to take that class?
I'm not seeing anything around how that would be
this is a policy declaration, and so there would be no way that that wouldn't even be said by passing this measure.
I understand that, but there's no process in place of how that works.
It's a declaration of policy.
Any other discussion? Oh, yes, Vice Chair LaCroix.
I do not prepare to say anything about this today, but I recall, I think one of the things that come up for me as a concern when it comes to this measure is something that even the proponent brought up at Saturday's discussion, is that the San Francisco Unified School District is already working on policy about what algebra in 8th grade would look like. And so with that, and in addition, the fact that this is a measure that was brought forward by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Education and the Board of Supervisors are two separate entities. The supervisors are responsible for legislation and policy with regards to the city and county of San Francisco. The Board of Education is entrusted with developing the curriculum for educating our students. And so I think like that in and of itself kind of brings up, and the fact that there's no like teeth to this legislation, I think brings up for me a bit of concern. Low key, stay in your lane. But I think with that, I think I come from a family of educators, and so both in my immediate family and in my extended family, middle, high schools, elementary school. My sister is currently a counselor at a middle school in South City, and so we've talked about this, and I also took pre-algebra in 8th grade, and so I think the things that are brought forward about like wanting to make sure that our students are set up for success when they go off to college, and they have everything that they need the tools for success to get there. I am all for that, but I think the method in which this measure has come across, I think to Member Barry's point, is very just sort of creating an issue that is already being covered by our Board of Education. And so with that, I'll be voting no endorsement.
That's a question.
Oh, yes, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, let's do a roll call.
Prop G, offering algebra 1 to 8th graders, options yes, no, no endorsement, and abstain. Avalos.
No.
Braca.
No endorsement. Or excuse me, abstain.
Barry.
Pass.
Campos. Yes. Chen.
Pass.
Duffy.
Yes.
Bellotta.
No endorsement.
Ibanez.
No.
Kim.
Yes.
LaCroix.
No endorsement.
Lee.
No endorsement.
Loftus.
Yes.
Lovett.
No endorsement.
Mahogany.
Pass.
Mandelman.
Yes.
Mar.
No endorsement.
Maliga.
No.
Peraza.
Yes.
Raju.
No.
Brown. Thomas.
Abstain.
Tung.
Yes.
Zoe.
Yes.
Pelosi.
Yes.
Ma.
Abstain.
Cohen.
Yes. Yes.
Wiener.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Ting.
Yes.
Going back to Barry.
No endorsement.
Chen.
Abstain.
Mahogany.
Yes.
Anyone else? Totals are 14 yes, 4 no, 4 abstain, 6 no endorsement. This measure is endorsed.
The ballot measure endorsement. Nice work, y'all.
Thank you to both the resolutions committee and also also the endorsement committee for your process. And thank you members for making this so smooth. That is the end of our endorsements, but at this time we're gonna call item number 7, which is new business. Is there anyone who has any item they would like to bring forward?
I have a really quick one. As BART president, I get to choose the recipients of BART's Holiday Toy Drive, and it's going to be the Samoan Community Development Center and Community Youth Center, 2 amazing community centers in San Francisco. So I will either send to a link or I'll send to you, Moises. If you would like to donate some money or some gifts, you will be well loved.
Can I get a sweater?
Since I think they are
totally missed
sold
out
out.
on that.
I don't work much today, so.
Any other new business? Okay, before we adjourn, we do have an in memoriam. I believe we have at least one in memoriam that we'd like to speak on. Member Berry?
Yes, members, I apologize. I had no clue none of my devices would work in this building. And I had a very well written out in memoriam for a pillar in the Black community. And if anybody been in politics a while, you don't have to be in the Black community to know Ronald Coulthurst. I will be speaking for 4 minutes because I want to recognize that every 4 minutes, someone in Palestine is being killed. So by the time I finish talking, another person is dead. I met Ronald Coulthurst when I first ran for supervisor. I don't know if y'all know I tried that, but I did. And I was referred to him and his book club in Visitation Valley. So once a month I go see him on Fridays and we read chapters of a book and we discuss it, and he's such an intellectual. We break down items of the book and whatnot. And then it got to the point where I would cheat. I didn't read the book at all, and I just read a few paragraphs and come up in there and talk about the paragraphs I read. But it always led to politics. Every time I talked to him, that man knew the ins and outs of this city, and he knew it through a Black lens. He gave up on a lot of processes in the city, but then he encouraged me to look at numbers, look at how people vote, look at why people vote, who's endorsing them, all kind of little stuff like that. And the sad thing is, we just as a club endorsed the Harriet Tubman African American Democratic Club. Ronald Coulthurst was a founding member of it. And he's helped this club so much thus far with our values and our bylaws and in our meetings. He was that cool brother to just do the little Zoom, raise the little hand and say, well, I think it's supposed to be done this way. And when he spoke, everyone listened and adhered to what he said. And I don't know one person in the city that I can now go to advice for on everything, especially when it comes to the Black community. I don't know one person. Yesterday in the Chambers Board of Supervisors, they did an in memoriam forum, Supervisor Walton, and I met his sisters, beautiful, beautiful people that holding up other people that are sad by his passing. It was a sudden one. I don't think he was found for like 5 or 6 days in his apartment. 50 seconds left. I just wanted to add, this was a man that had a TV but didn't watch it. He listened to the radio. He listened to KGO the whole time he was home. And that's why he was so informed. He didn't get a cell phone until a few years ago. Someone finally talked him into one. But members, with 20 seconds left before another person gets killed over in Palestine, I just want you to know that this city has lost an important man, but I trust that he's in a better place. Thank you, and it's been 4 minutes.
Thank you, Member Berry. Appreciate that. Does anyone else have any in memoriams that they'd like to offer at this time?